Hi there. Pretty, isn't it? It's a great old town. Recognize me? I'm the guy who pumps your gas, delivers your pizza, bags your groceries, and does a dozen or so other jobs around towns, just like this one. So you do know someone like me, right? I like living here, actually. People work hard, have a good time, rarely argue about anything. Well, almost anything.
Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Sackler. I have to pay the same amount of tax on gasoline to drive my car as you do, but you can afford it a lot more than I can. Is that fair?
You know, we got the same kind of house as Linda's parents, so the same amount of property, and we pay the same amount of tax, which goes to help build schools for kids like Linda. You call that fair?
I sure don't see what he's complaining about. I pay the same amount of property tax as he does, but his income is much larger than mine. I make do with a small pension and my Social Security. Now I ask you, is that fair?
What is fair when it comes to taxes? As you can see, it's not easy to get agreement on that question. I pay taxes myself. And one day I got to thinking, who should pay for the roads, or the schools, or the courts, or the army? Well, one thing I found out was that we all benefit from some government services, and most people will agree that some taxes are necessary. But it's not easy to get an agreement on what is a fair tax. I also found out that there are two criteria that can be used to help determine whether a tax is fair. The first one is benefits received. Benefits received means that the people who benefit from government programs should be the ones who pay for them. For example, people who drive on our highways should be the ones who pay for their construction and maintenance. The second criterion to use is ability to pay. Ability to pay means that people with different amounts of wealth or different amounts of income should pay different amounts of taxes. Those with the most wealth or the most income should pay higher taxes than those with less. So, let's take a look at some taxes and try to judge if they're fair according to our two criteria.
Gas costs more this week than it did last week. Used to be $15. Fill it right up.
Yeah, don't you know it? That'll be $15 even, miss.
Doesn't gas cost more per gallon than it did last week?
Yeah, but it's not the price of gas that went up, it's the excise tax. It increased by 3 cents per gallon on Monday.
Well, why'd they increase it?
Well, I guess the government needed more money to build and repair the highways, bridges, and roads. The gas tax goes into a highway fund. That's what I tell people when they ask.
Well, that seems fair. We drive on the roads, we ought to pay for them.
Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Sackler. I have to pay the same amount of tax on gasoline to drive my car as you do, but you can afford it a lot more than I can. Is that fair?
Hey, well, there's Mrs. Barry. Morning, Marion.
Well, look who's here. How are you, Jack? Linda?
How about yourself, Marion?
Can't complain.
Now, here's someone who doesn't have to worry about gasoline increases.
Of course not, my dear. I shouldn't have to pay the gasoline tax because I don't own a car. But you could say I use the roads. There's my bus. See you later.
Of course, even Mrs. Barry might pay for the roads indirectly if her bus fare increases when there's an increase in the gasoline tax. Or if the transportation cost of the things she buys goes up when others have to pay more in gas tax to haul her goods. What is fair? If you judge the gasoline tax according to benefits received, then it's a fair tax. It's used to provide roads and highways, and it's paid for by people like Linda, Jack, and me who drive our cars and trucks on them. Now, if you judge the gasoline tax according to ability to pay, it's not a fair tax. Linda, the owner of the older car, does not have as much wealth or income as Jack, the owner of the expensive car. Yet they both pay the same amount of tax on the gasoline they bought. This amount takes a larger percentage out of Linda's income than out of Jack's income. Now let's take a little closer look at ability to pay. Ability to pay can be determined by wealth. Wealth consists of assets like houses, cars, stocks, bonds, savings accounts, and valuables such as jewelry or furs. Or ability to pay can be determined by income. Income, for determining ability to pay, is the amount you receive each year in wages, rents, interest, profits, and other money payments. One kind of wealth many people have is houses. The property tax they pay on these houses are taxes on wealth.
You wouldn't believe how fast they're building that new wing on the high school down the street. They're almost finished.
You wouldn't believe the property tax notice I just got in the mail to help pay for it. Well, we got the same kind of house as Linda's parents on the same amount of property, and we pay the same amount of tax, which goes to help build schools for kids like Linda. You call that fair?
I sure don't see what you're complaining about. I pay the same amount of property tax as you do, but your income's much larger than mine. I make do with a small pension and my Social Security. Now, I ask you, is that fair?
Hi, guys. You need any help?
Oh, no, thanks, Linda. But it was nice of you to ask.
What is fair? Judging by benefits received, is the property tax fair? Sacklers and Mrs. Barry don't have children who benefit directly from the public schools their taxes are paying for. On the other hand, we all benefit from educated citizens. And Linda's parents pay the same amount of property tax that the Sacklers and Mrs. Barry do. What do you think? Judging by ability to pay, is the property tax fair? Well, if you use ability to pay based on wealth, the property tax is fair, since the property tax is the same for people who have property of equal value. But people with the same wealth can have different incomes. The Sackler's income is much higher than Mrs. Barry's income. So, is the property tax fair? Linda, can I see you a second?
More coffee? Leslie, more coffee on table 3, please.
There you go, Linda.
Thank you. All these deductions. What do I really get for the taxes I pay?
Well, we all benefit from some government programs, like the courts and national defense. hard to assign individual benefits from many of our government programs, but those programs have to be paid for by someone. The federal income tax helps pay for national defense and other federal government programs. This tax is based on ability to pay, and it uses, you guessed it, income, not wealth, as a measure of ability to pay. People like the Sacklers with high incomes usually pay a larger percentage of their incomes in taxes than people like Linda and Mrs. Barry with lower incomes. So if we use income as the measure of ability to pay, the federal income tax is a fair tax. But people with the same income can have different wealth, and they can receive different benefits from government services. So, what do you think? Is the federal income tax a fair tax according to benefits received? According to ability to pay based on wealth? The next time you pay a tax, ask yourself these questions. Is this a fair tax? How am I benefiting from it? What do we mean by a fair tax? Hi again. Well, there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of my town and meeting some of my friends and neighbors. I also hope I've been able to shed a little light on taxes and the question, what is fair? I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other somewhere again. I hope so.
The content of Understanding Taxes was developed in cooperation with the Joint Council on Economic Education and school and economic education agencies from the entire United States. Funding was provided by the Internal Revenue Service. Facilities for this production were provided by the Educational Film Center. Understanding Taxes was produced by the Agency for Instructional Technology.